Okay, dudes, I'm going to do a tutorial on turning some line work into a sort of respectable map. This is going to be a stylized map, sort of like one of these 70s sort of looking Tolkien maps that you will be familiar with, hopefully from fantasy novels and stuff like that. I'm going to presume you know a little bit about Photoshop and how to use brushes and how to use the select tool and stuff. So if I skim over anything, just sort of head back and look at some basics, and whatever doesn't make sense to you, sort of brush up on it, and then come back to the tutorial maybe. So I'm going to start off by just I've got this all in one layer, right, and it's just some line work of a coastline, or you could use a continent or whatever, an island. I'm just going to magic wand everything that's landmass. So I'm going to set the tolerance kind of a little bit higher to not 20, maybe 10. Contiguous on, anti-alias on. So another thing I'm going to note while I do this is I'm working at 2048 by 2048 for this image. For 2D art, always work in higher res than you need to, because when you scale things up, if you ever want to go bigger from a smaller image, it's just not going to happen. If you go downsize from a bigger image, it's a lot, you retain a lot of the quality and the details. So what I've done there is just shift click all of these with the magic wand just to add them all into one selection. Now I'm going to go new layer, and I'm going to use a white rectangle, which you should have not set to this. It should be set to pixels instead of shape. By default it's set to shape. I don't know why. Okay, so I've just boxed straight over that selection, make a new layer, and just so that I can see exactly what I'm working on, I'm going to make it a tiny bit grey, and then just paint bucket that layer in between them. So I've got the landmass on its own layer, so I'm going to name that layer landmass. You don't have to name your layers, but it's pretty helpful, especially as you get more and more layers. So I've got these two on their own layers as just with no line work, and then below I've got the original line work. So next thing I'm going to do is, this is going to seem ridiculous, but I'm going to add the line work straight back in, just using the Photoshop layer style line tool. Okay, so FX down here. I think there's another menu to do it, but this is the closest one. Stroke. That'll add a stroke, and the good thing about this is it's non-destructive. I mean, you can change the size of it to whatever you want, but you can turn it on and off, and it will keep a consistent thickness line all the way around, and you can change it whenever you need, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit better than having it just flatten down into the image like that. So now we've got these two on different layers, and we can do whatever we need to do with them. So save as you go, of course. Next thing we're going to do, you see the coastline has these sort of radiating lines coming out of it. To do that, I'm going to, I mean, obviously everyone does something a little bit differently, but this is one way to do it a little bit easily. I'm going to duplicate that landmass layer. Okay, turn off the stroke on it. I'm going to hide the original landmass layer so I can just see what I'm working on here. So I've just got a copy of that landmass layer with just the white. I'm going to add another layer effect to it, an outer glow. Okay. By default, the outer glow is on screen mode. We want this on normal because screen, if we try to set it to black, okay, we'll set the size of that up. If we set that back to screen, it doesn't show up. It's because it will only blend things that are lighter, lighter than completely black, and it will blend them in more and more lighter they get. Anyway, that's another story. But as you can see, this isn't going to work very well as a guide for where we're going to put our little contour line thingies, because it's smoothing around all these sort of important features that peninsula isn't getting at the same level of darkness that is. So that's because this is on softer. We're going to set that to precise. So now everything has a pretty precise little gradient flooding out from it. Okay. Now, one thing about the outer glow thing is you've got contour. Okay, we can set that to something other than just a straight line. So we could set it to a curvy line. We could set it to zigzags. We could set it to that. There's all these things, but what we're going to use is this stepped one here, because that will actually create. You can probably see what we're doing with this. Really, it's going to create sort of like banding. And now we see what we've got there. We can sort of mess around with what size we want. and that looks okay to me, so I'm going to OK that. Now, because these are still layer styles, they're not actually considered to be part of the image, part of the actual bitmap image, right, on that layer. So what I'm going to do is create a blank layer above landmass and below this landmass copy that has the banding effect on it. I'm going to drop that down onto the empty layer. So now this is actually it's actually part of the layer now, the layer effect. And the next thing we're going to do is, oh, I should have done this in the first place, but I'm going to make the background white of that layer. So I've just created another layer, paint bucketed white, merge down, okay? So we've got, that's what this layer looks like right now. What you're seeing is what's on that layer. Nothing's blending. Okay, so now we've got this banding effect, but we want it to be like lines, like that, right? To do that, you go to filter, and then there is stylize. It's probably in a different menu. It probably depends on the Photoshop version. But there is a check stylize first. If it's not there, have a look in some other menus. There's something called find edges, and what that's going to do is it's literally going to just find where there's a significant change in color, and it's going to paint a little line around it. So now we've got line work there. There's a little dot there which we'll just clean up by boxing over it with white. You can see we've got these little radiating sort of lines coming out. They're not quite exactly the same as this, because they're tighter at the coastline, and they sort of increase in the distance between them as they go out to sea. But that's okay. I'm not too phased about that. I want to do this quickly. So right now, both the landmass and the sea are white. If we set this to multiply, it's just going to multiply. It's going to blend the dark stuff over the top of the light stuff. So if I add another layer here, and I get blue. If you already know about layer blending mode, you know what I'm doing. If you don't, this is what they do. You can paint. Oh, this is in grayscale mode. You do want to have this in RGB, and don't flatten. You want this in RGB mode when you start, so that you can actually use color. But you can see you can paint stuff underneath that layer now, and because it's on multiply, it will keep anything dark, and it will transfer it down on top of everything else. Okay, I don't know how long I've been going for, but the next thing we'll do is just quickly do some line work for rivers, because rivers are very important for fantasy worlds, I guess. The way they've done these is just basically use the same color as the sea and just made them go inland in little wobbly lines and sort of snaking through the landscape and whatever. So these should be pretty easy, right? On top of the landmass layer, I'm going to go create a new layer. I'm going to color pick this by just alt clicking on it. I'm going to get a brush, maybe on 13. 13 is probably pretty cool. Let's see how broad the mouth of a river looks on 13. Maybe a bit more. Maybe 19. Yeah, that's cool with me. That's cool. Okay, now to save my time, I'm going to do a little brush edit. Okay, shape dynamics, right? Well, that's what was on by default, but we'll turn that on, and we'll set this to fade. And what that's going to do is, as the line goes on, it's going to decrease in its diameter. So I'll set that to say 700, maybe 600. And what that's going to do is, as you can see, rivers actually get thinner as they go along. So that's going to hopefully do that job for us without us having to mess around. So I'll just pick a random place to draw a river. Oh, I need that on its own layer. Absolutely certainly need that on its own layer. So there we go. Every edit you do, probably make on its own layer and then blend it in. So we're painting. And as you can see, the line weight is getting lower as we go inland, which is really neat. That's a very cool thing. So we'll go down to maybe 13 now to start from here, because we're already a little bit inland. Okay, cool, huh? Draw another little branch of that river heading over this way. What else? We'll go back up to 19 to do another. This looks like a good spot. have a river. Oh, we didn't the layer thingy isn't on fade. So to 600 again. I'll go 500 this time. I want it to fade out a little bit less. I mean, a little bit sooner. Okay, cool. And yeah, remember, if you pick one of these presets, it will reset to whatever it was before. So you just change the diameter, the starting diameter specifically. Okay, so to 8 now. Do some more little branches like this. I'm not going to noodle around with that too much. That's fine by me. And then just put a stroke on it. And then we got, I might put it inside instead of outside, and I'll set it to maybe 2. Yeah, 2's okay with me. It's got, the edges are a little bit sort of not sharp enough for me, so I'm just going to drop a sharpen on it. That cleans it up a tiny bit, still a little bit janky, but that's why we work at a higher res than we need, so that kind of stuff doesn't matter. Now, as you can see, these are clipping into the water, right? We don't want that to happen, of course. So the easiest way to fix that is, because we've got the landmass layer directly underneath it, what we need to do is right-click this. Okay, we'll name that for starters, rivers. Right-click this and go create clipping mask. And what the clipping mask does, it will only paint information onto where there's information below it. So because there's nothing here out in the water on this layer, right, it won't paint the river out onto that layer. And right now the only and because that's set to stroke mode, it's copying a little thing there anyway. So you can erase these, but it's probably easiest at this point to take just a new layer, right? Grab that, grab your regular old brush and grab the color of that, and just sort of paint the mouths of these rivers out. It's not a huge deal. It doesn't look terrible without it, but you know, for anyone who's even a little bit pedantic, they'll probably want that to be done. Okay, so we've got pretty decent line work now. It all looks okay to me so far. So I'm gonna stop the tutorial there, and then we're gonna go on to some sort of different techniques for actually filling the land in, and maybe in the same tutorial some texturing, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, I'm out for the moment. See you in the next one.